Welcome to In the Green, the podcast based on the intersection between life, finance, and the pursuit of breaking par. I am your host, Ryan Briggs with GFG Wealth Advisors. Time to tee off. Welcome back to the next episode of In the Green podcast. Today we are talking about the subject of saving for educational expenses. This is a hot topic, so we have brought in Mark Green to join us again, president of GFG Wealth Advisors. Mark, thanks for stopping by.
Glad to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You got it. So this is something that comes up with our clients constantly, right? And if they're not bringing it up, we're bringing it up to them, correct? You know, it's...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with the rising cost of educational expenses, like you said, it is a hot topic. It's on the forefront of, parents and grandparents.
Sure.
So it's multi-generational.
I believe it. And, you could have a very well thought out financial plan and, be on a very stable footing. But if you haven't thought about, what happens if your child goes to a school that costs, an exorbitant amount of money, what are you going to do? Because you really want to, you don't really want them to start off in the world loaded up with a bunch of debt. That's not really the idea. So how do we prepare for these things? We're going to go into some detail about different types of accounts, and every situation's different, even though some accounts are favored more than others. But there's a lot that you could do out there, and that's part of our services that we provide to make sure that this, what is now a very common thing to happen in somebody's life, where it may not have been, a couple generations ago, that you've got some preparation in place for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point of just a few minutes ago, it is so important to save early and save often.
Sure.
And as a new parent, we all know how hard it is. I mean, you're pinching pennies. You've just had your first child. You've got a mortgage. You've got maybe not the top wage earning job right now. And so it's really hard to squeeze out that extra $50 or $100 a month to put back for your child's education. But it's so absolutely important, and we see it every day where people wait till late and they're playing catch up to try to get it done. And so we try to start early in the process of talking about, okay, well, congratulations, you've just had your first kid, you really need to start saving now. And so, as you said, there's several different ways of saving for that education.
Perfect. Well, let's get into it a little bit. So, what types of accounts are used in saving specifically for education? And why do we hear about them so much? Which one's more popular? Which one's least popular? Let's kind of walk through some pros and cons. I know you brought some notes with you wanted to go over. So, what's the most common type of savings account for education that we see?
I would say that the three that are most heard of, or the three available, are the 529 plan,
okay,
the Uniform Transfer to Minor Act, or UTMA account, and then, of course, the old Coverdell, which is now the educational savings account.
Okay.
And then there's also a fourth one that everybody or most everyone uses, and people have used in the past to success, but it's kind of costly, and that is just leave the money in your own personal account and pay your kids' expenses out of your own investments.
Okay.
And so we can talk a little more about that.
Okay. Well, let's break these down individually. They all have unique characteristics. There's some pros here, some cons here, and that's why one type of an account might fit for somebody's situation, but another type might be better for that situation.
Sure.
Let's start with the 529 plan. What can you tell us about the characteristics of how those work?
Well, I would say that probably the 529 plan is the most popular.
Okay.
Because you can save more in that plan. The 529, the parent or grandparent, or as we call the guardian, the person who is setting up that account, maintains control of the assets until the child reaches 30 years old. Okay. And there's just so many caveats with that 529 plan that are advantageous. Taxes, the first $1,250, or I'm sorry, in the 529 plan, the parent does keep control of the assets, and then when the child is in their 30s, if they don't use all of the money or they don't use any of the money, you can convert up to $35,000 of that into a Roth IRA for that child, which is a great planning tool even for a young child. If a parent is worried, and we hear it all the time, parents worried, well, maybe they go to a trade school, or maybe they don't want to go to school, whatever the case may be, what do I do with my money? Well, this is a way to put money back before they even have a job and then when they're in their 30s, you can put that money into a Roth IRA for them. But as far as educational expenses are concerned in the 529, again, the parent keeps control of the money, and it goes toward any secondary education.
As well as K through 12. There's
Correct.
Expenses
Correct.
you can use there.
So private school, that sort of thing.
Your kiddos are in private school.
Correct.
If you're looking that route and you have somebody set aside, it can be used for that too. So
correct.
Now, I think that's we kind of breezed through that topic, but it's very important to kind of jump back and dig into one thing here, that it's a relatively new option you have for offloading funds within a 529. So one of the biggest fears that I hear people say when saving for education is, well, what happens if it doesn't get used, right? So Congress has helped us out, considerably with a bill they passed last year, which allows us to take unused funds up to $35,000 and convert that into a Roth IRA. That's incredible. Before you would have to take it out as income, and it wasn't as advantageous. So they're really trying to limit the barriers to incentivize people to do these types of things, just so you're kind of following along at home with what's going on.
Yeah, and the other good thing about a 529 plan that is not available to the other plans is that if that child doesn't go to school, and you have a second child or a third child or a cousin, and your child does not go to school, you can transfer those funds in entirety to another child as long as they are family.
Yep, no taxes, no
Correct.
fees to do it.
And that could include a parent. If a parent decides they want to go back to school, you can take money from the child's, put it into your 529, and then pay your own tuition.
Awesome. A lot of flexibility there.
Yeah.
I would say the flexibility in what you can do is the reason that's the most popular
I would agree.
option.
I would agree.
So the next one we'll talk about used to be known just as a blanket ESA or Coverdell's. So let's dig into that. How are they different from a 529? What does the word Coverdell mean? Just walk us through it all.
Well, Coverdell was the congressman, I believe, that represented the bill that got the educational savings account started. So it started out as the Coverdell Educational Savings Plan, and then they just dropped the Coverdell and now call it the Educational Savings Account.
And was this kind of the first of its time back when they introduced it, or had there been other things like that?
No, that was it. I mean, there was the UTMA or UGMA, which is Uniform Transfer to Minor or Uniform Gift to Minor Act. Those were there, but as far as saving in a tax-sheltered type investment, the Coverdell was the first one.
Okay.
And I guess the downside to the Coverdell is you can only contribute $2,000 a year, and there are phase-outs income-wise for parents if they file jointly, or single filers, it's between $95,000 and $110,000, and if you're filing jointly, if you make between $190,000 and $220,000, it starts phasing out. You can't contribute the entire $2,000.
Yeah, and that kind of income level, depending on where you live in this country, sometimes that's median income, to live in certain areas.
Correct.
It's certainly high for the overall country, but you can find yourself on the other side of that line fairly quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's some limitations there.
Yeah, and then compare that to the 529, where you got a $2,000 limit for the ESA Coverdell, but the 529 you can provide up to the gift tax, right? Which
Correct.
is in 2024 is $17,000 a person. So a married couple could feasibly contribute $34,000 within a year versus $2,000 in a traditional ESA.
That is correct.
That is
correct.
Huge difference. Or
Yep.
if you want to have grandparents contribute, as birthday gifts, things like that.
Or you can use, the parents or grandparents can use their maximum exclusion allowance and contribute up to $545,000, which is the maximum limit that you can put into a 529.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's definitely a decent discrepancy between the two. You might find yourself, though, in a situation where in the next 18 years, you're never going to be able to contribute more than $2,000 a year based off your own personal finances.
Right.
So that's how they differ, and one could be better for somebody else. Just depends on your situation. So we'll jump down to the one that we've kind of danced around a little bit, the Universal Transfers to Minor Act, UTMA, also known as UGMA, but I believe that's getting phased out.
It is. Not really sure why they changed it to UTMA, but having been in the business almost 40 years, I started out with UGMA, and then it became UTMA. And there's some advantages and disadvantages to the UTMA. The UTMA, the parent or the grandparent, whoever the guardian or custodian is on that account, is the one who controls the assets, but it is a gift that comes out of your estate into the child's name immediately when you contribute it. So once you put it in there, you are not able to take it back. You can't transfer that money between kids or cousins like you can a 529. And there are tax implications. When you take the money out, the first $1,250 of earnings is taxed at the child's rate.
Okay.
The next is free. The next $1,250 is taxed at the child's rate, and then anything over that is taxed at the parent's rate. So anything over $2,500, it gets a little bit expensive.
Yeah, and if you've got a decent sum sitting in that, $2,500 is not too hard to hit that limit.
That's right. But the good thing is that money can be used for anything.
Okay. Not just education.
Correct. As long as it's for the benefit of the child.
Okay.
Yeah, can be used for anything.
If they need a car when they're 16, if they need, some health insurance when they're a young adult, all around the table.
That's right. And the maximum contributions is just up to the gift limit. So whatever the parents want to give, up to the $17,000 or $18,000 a year per parent is all that they can do for it, but they can do it for each child.
Okay. That's good to know. The topic that I want to approach next is, we have all of these tools at our disposal, but they're there for a reason, right? Everybody's seeing it. The cost of tuition is going up. We've got federally insured student loans that are being given to a lot of people that apply, and they're going and using them at universities that have increasingly rising costs. So it's a little bit of a it's accelerated inflation on a product and service, right? So if you're sitting at home right now and you've got a young one, 1 to 4 years old, you're looking at them going to school sometime around 2040. Just a little bit of research, 1 year in 2040 for a public in-state university is going to be right around $40,000, which is, that's 4 cars for somebody who's 18 years old. When you start comparing it to other prices of goods and services, it is astronomically expensive. But you're also sitting there saying, if my little one, they want to go to this school, I want to be able to provide for them to do this. You don't want finances to be in the way. So kind of, I guess, talk about how important it is to have at least something in here within your overall financial plan to tackle this subject as it comes up.
Well, no doubt. Inflation is absolutely the reason we start the conversation early. Just about as soon as the child is born, we have to have a Social Security number to get something started. And so, the first question is, congratulations, what a beautiful child. And then, does he or she have a Social Security number yet? Because we need to get an account open and get you started.
I had somebody, they waited a whole week after their baby was born to give me the Social Security for it.
Yep, exactly.
A whole week.
So, Ryan, and along those lines, one of the other things we need to talk about probably is the way that you invest in each one of these different accounts.
Okay.
Because that leads to how do we beat inflation? How do we get to where we need to be when the child turns 18 and is ready to go to school or to a trade school or whatever they're going to do?
Yeah, walk us through that. That'd be
absolutely.
Great.
In the 529 plan, you set them up through an advisor, but they have to be set up with a mutual fund company. Okay, or within a mutual fund family. And so they're limited to just that family of funds, like an American Funds, or with us, we use American Funds, we use Schwab, we use John Hancock Funds, we've got all these different ones that do very well. But most of the time, and I will say in my business, 9 times out of 10, the parents and grandparents don't want to micromanage, and they don't want us to micromanage. So we just buy what's called target date or age-based funds. And so in your scenario, if a child opens an account, they're going to school in 2040, we buy a target date fund that is a 2040 fund. And all that means is that they're more aggressive when they're young, and as they get closer to needing the money, it becomes more conservative. It happens automatically every 3 to 5 years as the child matures. And so when you get to 18, you're in a conservative investment so that you don't lose money when the market corrects, and the money's there for you to use.
A little bit of a kind of a microcosm of exactly what you do in somebody's lifespan.
Correct.
Right, where you start out aggressive young, but as you get closer to the time of needing it, you start to change that risk profile.
Absolutely.
It just happens in 15 to 18 year span versus somebody's lifetime.
Right. And then the Coverdell Educational Savings Account and the UTMA accounts, both, you can invest in anything you want to invest in. It can include ETFs, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, Bitcoin if you wanted it. I mean, you can do anything within those accounts that you want to do, and it's kind of on you to decide how you want to be allocated. And as they get closer, do you get more conservative? Do you stay aggressive? And so it's up to the individual investor and the advisor.
Okay, that's a nice note there to kind of talk about for a little bit. You know, the pros and cons, and why this might be fitting for somebody else. You know, you spoke to a cryptocurrency. You know, let's say you're loaded up with cryptocurrency. You can't put that in a 529, but you could contribute that to UTMA or an ESA.
Correct. Correct.
So
or
really,
invest in that. Yeah.
Yeah. It depends on what your specific needs are and what you need to accomplish.
Yeah, and I think the other big differentiator between the three is the 529 plan. The guardian, the parent, the grandparent, they keep control of the assets throughout the entirety of the account. Mm-hmm. And so the child turns 33 and there's money left. You want to convert it to the Roth, you can. You want to take it, transfer it to another child, you can do that. It's up to the parent, guardian, or grandparent. As far as the covered LESA, the guardian stays in control of those assets until the age of majority, which in some states is 18, some states is 21.
Depends on where you live.
Depends on where you live.
Okay.
And that child then takes control of those assets and can take them out. There's going to be tax consequences if it's not used for educational expenses. And then the UTMA account, which used to be the most popular, but as things have evolved, there's some concern with the parents and grandparents, or if there is concern with what the child may do.
Because it's theirs when they're 18.
When they turned 18, they come in with a driver's license. They hand you the driver's license. Those assets are theirs.
Sure.
Period.
So if you save for a long time expecting these dollars to be used for education, but they want to go buy a Harley Davidson, they're going to go buy a Harley.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. That's exactly right. So those are the big differentiators. Obviously all three of those accounts are very well used for educational expenses. Mm-hmm. I would say that the educational savings account for the new parent is probably the most popular because they're thinking, well, I can't put in more than $2,000 a year anyway, and I want more diversification than just a mutual fund. But I am seeing more money going towards 529s now, mm-hmm. Simply because grandparents are helping. Birthday money that comes in goes into into the 529 plan. So sometimes there is more than just that $2,000.
Sure.
And so we're kind of coaching them to kind of get bigger thoughts on bigger money as they get older. That way there's not a lot of transition between accounts.
Yeah. Compare that with some nice things that have been added on the back end of getting money out if it's
Correct.
not used. I think that's definitely why we're seeing a rise in
we're also seeing, as we mentioned earlier, we're seeing 529s getting used as estate planning tools now as well, that I want to get some money to my kids and I can start young and the money's going to be there when they're in their 30s and we can convert it to a Roth IRA and we're saving when they're less than 5 years old.
Yeah, and at $34,000 a year, which you can do as a couple, $17,000 a person, you can actually make some changes.
Yeah, but you can only convert that $35,000 right now. Maybe it'll go up. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
As we know, as much as things stay the same, they always change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that number will probably go up with inflation.
I would think so.
And so saving early, not only for education, but using it as an estate planning tool, I mean, that's a great advantage to the 529.
Yeah, you'll hear this theme we've been talking about is early, and you'll see this all throughout. Any financial episode we do here at In the Green. Time in the market is the one thing that you just cannot replace.
That's right.
Right. So, even if you have some money now to open one of these accounts, but you can't contribute next year, or you go through a rough spot, doesn't mean you have to keep contributing. It's at least there, and you've got some money in. So it's just a good idea to get things started.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we mentioned, starting early, and it doesn't have to be $100 or $200 or $1,000 a month. Everybody's got $25 or $50 a month mm-hmm. that they could put back for their children. And so we just try to coach people through that. Maybe it's not a pizza this week, or maybe it's
right.
not a stop at McDonald's or whatever. But just making people aware of what they can and can't do, I think is very important in what we do in helping our clients.
Well, that's good. Like everything in the financial world, it's all a lot more digestible when somebody explains it to you. So if you do not have an advisor that you work with, find somebody. We'd love to have you at GFG Wealth Advisors, but if you've got a relationship with somebody that is honest and trustworthy, go talk to them. Just have a great conversation with them about, the problems and things going on in your life. And we're really here to help. We wake up every day with the idea that we're going to help as many people as possible. So, glad we have great tools like this to help us get it done.
I agree.
So, Mark, thank you for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.
I enjoyed it very much.
Really good to see you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you in the 19th hole.
Thanks for listening to our episode today. Make sure to like, share, and download our episodes wherever you get your podcasts, and we'd really appreciate a review. Hope to see you in the 19th hole. Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized finance advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analysis of GFG Wealth Advisors. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, Private Client Services, or their clients or their employees. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by GFG Wealth Advisors or RFG Advisory or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Securities offered by registered representatives of Private Client Services, member FINRA, SIPC. Advisory services are offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. Private Client Services, GFG Wealth Advisors, and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.